Welcome to the world of science fiction, where extraordinary stories come to life, whether under distant suns or in the shadows of dying stars. Enjoy the journey as we drift into the tale together. The twin moons of Virex, 9 hang low tonight, draped in a burnt orange haze. Their reflections shimmer in the oil-slick puddles that dot the rusting platforms of the auction block. Somewhere above, a slow-moving cruiser growls, casting a shifting web of shadows across the crowd. Traders, pirates, and the occasional scavenger line the rails, eyes glowing faintly in the violet mist, murmuring in tongues older than any empire. Jalen leans on the railing, arms crossed over the worn fabric of his coat. His boots are caked with red dust, his collar turned up against the acid wind that always seems to follow him through these places. He's not here to buy. Not really. He's just waiting out a storm and killing time in a place where time has long since lost its worth. Then he sees her. Lot 442. A clone, the auctioneer says. Female. Near human. No designation. No owner marks. No guarantees. Barely breathing. Just enough vital signs to list her as salvageable. She lies still in the containment slab, limbs bound in pale scent filaments, head tilted just enough to show the delicate curve of her cheek. Her skin shimmers faintly, not gray, not green, something in between, like pearl under glass. And her eyes are closed, lifeless. Jalen doesn't know why he lifts his bidding card. Habit maybe. Boredom. Or maybe something in the silence around her, too quiet for this place, presses into his mind like a whisper he can't quite hear. No one bids against him. Not even a flinch from the traders. A few glances away, then look quickly away. Sold, says the auctioneer, almost like an apology. Lot 442 to the human. Jalen frowns. They usually say off-worlder or salvager. Never just human. It rolls out too clean, too loaded. He's halfway to the slab when her eyes open. They are entirely wrong. Not blank. Not dazed. Alive. And looking straight at him. She doesn't flinch. Doesn't blink. Just says one word. Jalen. He freezes. The name drops through him like a needle through glass. No one in this system knows his name. Not his real one. The murmurs ripple through the crowd now. Slow and quiet, and edged with something cold. Jalen grabs the slab handles and yanks her upright. She doesn't resist. Her limbs hang loose, but her gaze never leaves him. Not once. It's not recognition in her eyes. It's memory. And worse, trust. What the hell are you? He mutters, dragging her toward his shuttle. She tilts her head, lips parting like she's trying to remember a language she once knew. I waited, she whispers. Jalen doesn't ask what that means. The way her voice wraps around the syllables, like a lullaby from a dream he forgot, is reason enough not to. The bay doors hiss open behind him, and 2 dockhands back away as they see her face. He loads her into the med pod aboard the Indigo Scythe, his old hauler patched together with alien alloys and human pride, and slams the hatch shut. The engines groan as he lifts off, leaving the auction block and its too quiet crowd in the dust storm below. She sleeps, or pretends to. Jalen stares at the med screen, watching the readouts pulse in strange colors he's never seen before. Neural activity off the charts. No slave tags. No cortical limiter. DNA scans cross-match. Nothing. Human base pairs, but laced with something older. Clone my ass, he mutters. He sips cold CAF from a cracked thermos and glances toward her again. The moment stretches, and then her lips twitch into a smile. Barely. Pilot Jalen, she says. It's good to see you again. He doesn't answer, but his fingers tighten around the thermos, knuckles white. Above them, stars will silently in the black, unaware, or perhaps deeply aware, of the kind of story that always begins like this. A nameless girl, a forgotten legacy, and a man who just wanted a quiet life. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is there. I love seeing the range. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The stars don't care who you were yesterday, only who you might become, especially when no one else dares to. Echoes in her eyes. Jalen's ship cuts silently through the debris-laced quiet of Sector Theta 3. Beyond the reinforced glass of the cockpit dome, stars blink coldly. Inside the indigo scythe, the girl lies motionless in the medpod's glow, her breath slow, even too even, like someone pretending to sleep through an interrogation. Jalen watches from the control chair, legs crossed, a worn datapad resting on one knee. He hasn't touched it in 20 minutes. She said his name. Not pilot, not salvager, not even human. Jalen, the name he stopped using after what happened on Draxo's verge. All right, he mutters, rising from the chair with a grunt. Let's try this again. He opens the medpod. The girl blinks slowly, like she's been expecting him. I ran your biometrics, Jalen says. No matches. You're not on any registry. Not corporate, not syndicate, not black site. You've got human genes, but something else layered on top, like coral over bone. She doesn't respond. Then there's this. He holds up a small projector. A hologram spins into existence, a lattice of neural pathways pulsing in faint teal. Your brain, if that's what it is, runs on quantum recursion. You're holding memories like a song stuck in a loop, but shifting. Again, silence. Say something. Jalen snaps. Tell me I'm wrong. She smiles faintly. Do you remember the glass bridge? Jalen's blood runs cold. There's no way you. You fell, she continues, her voice soft. 12 meters. Broke your arm. You were 8. You were wearing those ridiculous sky boots that didn't fit. His mouth opens, closes. That happened. On Earth. Before the colony ships. Before he left. I never told anyone that, he whispers. Her smile fades. You told me. He stares at her, words failing. Your eyes, he says after a long moment, are mine. She nods. But I've never met you. She nods again. I don't believe in soulmates. Now she frowns. Neither did I. Until we broke apart. A soft chime interrupts. External proximity alert. Something's nearby. Jalen swipes the control screen. Nothing large. Just a cloud of microsat debris from an old battle drifting past like forgotten ghosts. One piece, oddly shaped, drifts close, a mirror fragment, reflecting the scythe's hull. And in it, Jalen sees her standing beside him. Except it's not her. It's her face. But older, wiser, crowned in dark circuitry, like branches of obsidian. He blinks. The image is gone. Who are you? He says again, but quieter now. I don't know what they named me, she says, slowly sitting up. But I remember what you used to call me. Sarah. He takes a step back. That name hasn't left his lips in 15 years. Because it never belonged to a person. It was the name he used to give the imaginary friend in his dreams. A girl he spoke to every night as a child, who whispered secrets about stars, who told him he wasn't alone. He stopped dreaming of her the day the colony ship took off. He assumed it was a coping hallucination. Impossible, he says. But she looks at him like he's the one who's forgotten. Your memories weren't yours alone, Sarah says gently. They were shared. He stares at her, struggling to find footing in a reality that feels like it's peeling. Shared how? He demands. There was a lattice, a cradle, before the breach, before the queen broke apart. He frowns. What queen? But Sarah's gaze is distant, her voice no longer fully her own. Not born, not crowned, but seated. We were echoes, memories stored like spores, some infected, some awakened, some imprinted. A chill moves through the ship, like a breath down Jalen's spine. You're saying I'm infected? No, Sarah says, looking at him now. I'm saying you were chosen. He laughs. A single cracked sound. No offense, but I'm no one. I fly junk across forgotten systems. I've got a ship held together with borrowed welds and a nervous AI who forgets her own name. Sarah cocks her head. She's called Lexi. She forgets on purpose. Jalen stiffens. She's right. The ship AI had started calling herself Lexi after a solar storm wiped her root core. No one told Sarah that. You said queen, he says. Who is she? Sarah lowers her voice. Galactic scholars still argue whether she was ever real. Some say she was a sentient algorithm that evolved beyond its own code. Others claim she was a flesh-born oracle who uploaded her soul. But they all agree on this. She fragmented herself into cloned seeds, embedding echoes of her mind across galaxies, waiting for a trigger. What kind of trigger? Sarah leans forward. You. A long pause. Jalen exhales. Great. So now I'm a walking ignition switch for some ancient psychic empress. Sarah almost smiles. That, or a very lonely child who dreamed too loudly into the dark. Jalen paces the room, fists clenched. If I keep you here, I'm hunted. If I turn you in, I'm erased. And if I believe you, really believe you, then everything I know about memory, about me, might be wrong. I know, she says softly. Her eyes, his eyes, mirror his own fear. But maybe, she whispers, that's the point. Outside the dome, stars slide past like questions without answers. Inside, a girl not quite human, and a man not quite sure he's alone in his own mind, sit in silence. And something somewhere begins to stir. Forbidden algorithms. The indigo scythe hums with low-frequency tension as it exits theta, 3 and drifts into the borderless dust of the Veil expanse. A zone no one maps, no one patrols. Perfect for pirates, smugglers, and people who've accidentally purchased a possible cosmic messiah. Jalen kneels beside the auxiliary terminal in the maintenance bay, his sleeves rolled up, a tangle of data cables and neural sync lines snaking from the clones back into the ship's translator core. Sarah sits on the floor beside him, eerily still, her posture calm despite the invasive nature of the uplink. She doesn't flinch when sparks fly from the interface. You know, most people twitch when you plug into their spine, Jalen mutters. I'm not most people, Sarah replies with a faint smile. And this spine is newer than it looks. He tries not to think about what that means. Lexi, the ship's AI, chirps faintly through the overhead intercom. You're attempting to decrypt a Class A neural stream with a freighter-grade processor. Are you high? Jalen grins. Only on adrenaline and poor life choices. Copy that. Lexi deadpans. Initiating low-stability protocol. Don't fry me. He types fast, his hands moving from muscle memory, calling on all the old tricks he learned back when he ran code for underground memory markets. Places where stolen memories were stripped, sliced, and sold like entertainment packages. But Sarah's code is different. It bends when he touches it. The data curls around his inputs like it's watching. Then it opens, and the screen floods with symbols, glyphs he's never seen, except once, burned into a wall inside an ancient derelict on Rithan 4. He remembers thinking they looked like the alphabet dreaming of itself. "You're running self-modifying code," he whispers, eyes wide. "I'm remembering myself," Sarah says. The system maps bloom in all directions, temporal branches, cross-linked thought trees, emotional weight graphs, and nested beneath it all, a locked vault. Jalen highlights it. Encrypted. Biometric. "Yours," she says simply. Jalen hesitates. "Why would your core hold my biometric lock?" Sarah tilts her head. "Because you made me." He laughs bitterly. "I'm a mechanic with PTSD and bad taste in socks." "You were more," she says. "Before. When we were one." He shakes his head. "Stop doing that. Saying things that sound poetic instead of helpful." She smiles faintly. "Sorry. Bad habit from being dead." He looks at her. She doesn't blink. "You're not joking," he says. "No," she replies softly. "I was archived, not destroyed. The Queen didn't believe in endings." Jalen swallows. His fingers hover above the biometric reader. This is the moment he should walk away. Airlock her. Dump the ship. Forget. But something in him, something from the glass bridge when he was 8, something from dreams too vivid to be dreams, compels him forward. He places his hand on the scanner. The vault opens, and the ship dims. Not just the lights, everything. Even Lexi's voice falters. Then the hologram surges. Not data. Memories. They explode across the bay like starlight, projected in waves of soft golden strands. Jalen stumbles as they rush into him. Childhood scenes, unfamiliar planets, a field of glass trees under a turquoise sky. He's living them, not as hallucinations, but as remembrances. A girl sits beside him in each one, her face always shifting, always almost Sarah, sometimes with feathers, sometimes with silver eyes, sometimes with no mouth at all. "I know these," he whispers. "They were stored between us," Sarah says, rising now, her voice echoing with layered tones. "Back when the Queen split herself to survive the culling. You volunteered." Jalen's knees buckle. "I wouldn't. I didn't." "Not this you," she says gently. Another thread. Another now. The philosophical headache punches him in the gut. "Galactic scholars still argue whether consciousness is fixed," she continues. "Whether each you is unique, or merely echoes of a larger waveform, collapsing into flesh over and over." "That's a great theory," Jalen growls. "Except I'm bleeding and breathing and broke. And I don't care about cosmic waveforms. I care about getting out of this alive." She looks at him with strange kindness. "That's why you were chosen. Not because you wanted power, but because you try to throw it away." He glares. "Is that supposed to be a compliment?" She steps closer. "It's why the Queen trusted you." A sudden pulse interrupts. The ship's outer sensors light up. Lexi's voice returns, panicked. "Inbound signature. 3 ships. Military configuration. They're jamming me, Jalen. They're here." Jalen scrambles for the cockpit, pulling Sarah with him. "Who?" he snaps. "Broadcast is encrypted," Lexi says. "But the hull IDs match old sovereign codes. The kind that died with the royal dynasties." Jalen doesn't have time to react before a new voice cuts in, deep, metallic, and calm. Return the clone seed, or be obliterated. Sarah steps forward, planting herself before the console. I invoke the entangled writ of continuance, she says firmly. The voice on the other end hesitates. Impossible. I am Sarah 9, last of the Queen's viable echoes. I claimed sanctuary. A long silence. Then, sanctuary granted. By ancient law. The ships halt their advance. Jalen stares at her, jaw slack. What the hell just happened? Sarah exhales slowly. I just made you royalty. Technically. Jalen slams his head gently against the bulkhead. I hate today. Only because it remembers you. Sarah replies, smiling. Outside, 3 alien warships stand still, waiting. Inside, a memory-laden ship glows with the impossible warmth of futures yet unchosen. The indigo scythe hovers in uneasy peace between 3 warships, each one bearing the jagged sigils of the Sovereign Code, a dynasty thought extinct since the shattering. Their hulls are living metal, veins of pulsing light trailing like bioluminescent roots across the dark. They don't fire, but they don't leave either. Inside the ship, Jalen paces. I need you to start over, he says. Because right now, we've got ancient warships playing nice because you said a magic phrase, and I'm not sure whether I should kiss you or lock you in a crate. Sarah sits cross-legged in the med bay, palms resting on her knees, her breathing controlled. Not human-controlled, engineered. Too symmetrical. Too exact. She didn't die. Sarah begins, voice low. The Queen. Jalen raises an eyebrow. The one who supposedly seeded her mind into clones? She was more than a mind. She was an event. He freezes. An event. Sarah nods. A consciousness so dense, it altered the space around it. Every thought she had bled into time. So when the fleets came to end her line, she fragmented, shattering herself into thousands of seeded vessels. Some physical, some digital, some emotional. Jalen rubs his temple. You're telling me a woman turned herself into memory spores and flung them across the galaxy? Sarah smiles. Yes, galactic scholars still debate whether she was insane or divine. He exhales slow. Which side are you on? I think she was tired, Sarah says gently, and that she wanted to be remembered more than obeyed. Jalen pauses. That hits closer to the bone than he expects. But why me, he asks. Why would this event queen link her legacy to me? Because your mind didn't reject the dream. Jalen's gaze hardens. I was 8. I talked to shadows. And she talked back. A pause. I thought I made you up, he mutters. You didn't, Sarah says. You found me. You gave me shape. You were one of many, but the only one who named me. Jalen stares at her. The name Sarah had come to him in sleep, a name he'd whispered to the dark, never knowing why it comforted him. It was never a real name, just a dream companion. Apparently, not so imaginary. You were a node, Sarah says, in a lattice of dreamers. Those she could reach. Children were easiest. No walls yet. No programming. Jalen grits his teeth. So you're saying I was recruited into a royal psychic network because I had an overactive imagination? She nods. And because, she adds, you never tried to use her. Jalen gives a bitter laugh. I barely remember who I was before I lost my crew. Before I started hauling waste from one dead rock to another. But the part of you that spoke to me never forgot. Outside the ship, the largest sovereign cruiser rotates slowly, exposing its core, a structure shaped like a spiral cathedral. In the cockpit, Lexi alerts them to a new signal, a narrowband invitation. Destination? Jalen asks. Parliament Core. Lexi replies. The Throne Shard, last known sanctuary of the Queen's mental backups. Jalen turns to Sarah. They're calling you home. She shakes her head. No. You. He points to himself. What part of I'm just a pilot isn't clear? The part where your dreams became a seed key, she replies. A strange silence follows, like the ship itself is holding its breath. Jalen finally slumps into the co-pilot's chair. This is why I hate legacy claims. No paperwork, just cosmic absurdity. Sarah sits beside him. You always hated crowns. Yeah, Jalen mutters. Too heavy. They lock course. The Indigo scythe angles into position, following a tether of soft blue light emitted from the Sovereign flagship. It doesn't feel like being pulled. More like remembered. As they pass into the cruiser's docking sphere, walls shift, ripple, and open like blooming metal. The interior is alive, carved from memory alloys that record every step, echoing not sound but thought. Lexi's voice returns, hushed. This place doesn't follow physics or time. I'm losing sync with my own logs. Jalen swallows. Wonderful. A hatch opens, and they step out onto a platform suspended in a cavern of light and soundless song. No guards, no weapons, just a single column of softly humming air. Sarah steps forward. This is her throne. Jalen crosses his arms. Doesn't look like one. She never sat, Sarah replies. She listened. To dreams. To memories. This is where they were woven. Jalen walks slowly to the column. Its light flickers, and in it, he sees flashes of himself. Not just the self, older ones, younger ones, other ones. Each one carrying the same haunted eyes. Each one whispering that name. Sarah. She didn't rule with power. Sarah whispers behind him. She ruled with memory. And now she's asking if he'll finish what she started. Jalen stares into the light. He doesn't feel powerful. He feels seen. And it scares him more than any worship ever could. The column of light doesn't hum, it breathes. Soft pulses resonate in waves, not through air, but through meaning. Jalen stands before it, heartbeat hitching with each flicker. The glow dances across his skin, leaving the faint scent of rain and ozone. He feels it, not as heat, but as memory brushing against skin that hasn't aged enough to understand it. Sarah remains behind him, silent, and then the light speaks. Not in sound, in recognition. Jalen's thoughts stutter. Images flood him, too fast, too intimate. The curve of a hand that isn't his, resting on the edge of a cradle made from starlight. A war council where no one has mouths, only glances like razors. A lullaby sung by a dying species, encoded in color and light. And one recurring presence. Her, the Queen. She has no single form. Sometimes bone, sometimes vapor, sometimes an equation that cries. But always, always the same voice. Not spoken, understood. It floods Jalen's mind now like a whisper pressed into the walls of his soul. You kept the name. Jalen recoils. No, I gave it. Because you remembered the part of me that loved. And that was enough. He steps back. Sarah is watching, eyes wide. You hear her? He asks. Sarah hesitates. Not like you. I have her fragments. Shards of will. But she's choosing you now. That's a terrible idea, Jalen mutters. I can't rule a chessboard, let alone a dynasty. The light pulses. You don't have to rule. You only have to carry. Jalen's brow furrows. Carry what? The part of me they tried to erase. Suddenly, the chamber shivers. Not violently, but mournfully. A memory of collapse. Sarah steps closer, her voice trembling. This is where she broke, where they came for her. Jalen looks around. The platform stretches into a space that isn't spatial, spiraling forever, yet folding inward like thought collapsing on itself. She hid her will here, Sarah says. Split it into echoes. And some of those echoes became people like me. Jalen turns. And some ended up in people like me? Sarah nods. Your dreams were doors. You opened them without meaning to. And she entered through kindness. A silence. Jalen sits on the edge of the platform. His boots dangle over a horizon of cascading light. This doesn't make sense, he says. I haul scrap. I talk to myself. I sabotage relationships before they start. I'm not a king. I'm a witness. Sarah sits beside him, and that's all she ever wanted. He turns to her. To be seen, she continues. Not worshipped, not feared, just remembered. Jalen closes his eyes, and then the queen shows him her memory. A field of black glass, 1,000 cloned seeds in slumber, a warship with tendrils like veins burning in the sky, voices chanting her end, and in the middle of it she, walking barefoot into oblivion, whispering to each seed a different name. To one, she whispers, Sarah. To another, Jalen. His breath catches. She didn't create me, he whispers. She divided herself into me. Sarah nods, tears in her eyes. You're not her successor, she says. You're her continuation. Jalen shakes his head. This is a cosmic joke. He touches the light again, and it laughs. Not mockery, just gentle, infinite amusement. Even stars have a sense of humor. The chamber begins to shift. The sovereign warships send data bursts, gentle, inquisitive, awaiting instruction, awaiting him. I don't want this, Jalen says. Then you'll be trusted with it. Sarah rises. There's an old law, she says. The crown of memory chooses not the strongest, but the most reluctant. Why? Because power doesn't corrupt the hesitant as quickly. Jalen grins bitterly. Philosophical monarchy. Great. Then the column dims. The voice recedes, but not vanishes. She remains. A quiet presence. No longer a queen, but a memory nested beside his own. Are you still you? Jalen asks Sarah. She nods. Mostly. But I remember more now. Like waking from half a dream. And what am I? Sarah smiles, gentle and a little sad. The voice that answered her when no one else did. Outside the ship, stars align into patterns unseen by most, like a system rearranging itself in gratitude. Jalen doesn't notice. He's too busy wondering if, deep down, he'd always known the queen was real. Because sometimes, the things we call dreams are simply memories that haven't happened yet. The stars outside stretch into filaments as the indigo scythe slips away from the sovereign flagship, trailing a diplomatic code burst, so ancient that Lexi's core AI has to rewrite its own dictionary just to parse the acknowledgement. Jalen sits in the command chair, but he isn't piloting. The ship knows the path now. Or maybe it's Sarah. Or maybe the queen still whispers in the walls, her will encoded in sublight pulses and gravimetric intuition. The silence inside isn't heavy, it's fragile. Like if either of them spoke too loudly, the illusion of separation between their minds might break. Sarah finally says, Have you noticed it yet? Jalen glances sideways. Noticed what? How time is wrong. He looks at the ship's clock. 11:41. Seems fine. Check the system logs, she says quietly. He pulls them up. Blinks. Blinks again. Over the past 12 hours, several log entries predate their own triggers. Commands executed before they were entered. Course corrections performed before obstacles appeared. It's not a glitch, Sarah says, answering the question he hasn't formed yet. It's memory. Folding in. Memory can't predict the future. No, she agrees. But if you remember enough, the present becomes redundant. He stares. Sarah closes her eyes. The Queen existed across overlapping moments. Her mind bled through timelines. Some say she cracked under the weight. Others say she became unstuck, like a thread tugged loose from time's embroidery. And you're saying that's happening to me? I'm saying it already did. You're catching up to it. Jalen exhales. His breath fogs. The temperature hasn't changed. But something has. The ship banks gently without his input. He doesn't stop it. They drift toward a pale nebula like a sleeping god's breath, its center knotted around an ancient satellite, long dead, yet pulsing with residual energy. The dream well, Sarah says. Jalen raises an eyebrow. I thought that was a myth. Everything important starts that way. He scans it. It's old. It was once a nursery, Sarah says. Before the war, where queen seeds were shaped, not built, shaped, taught to dream before they could obey. Jalen slows the ship, pulling them into the decaying orbit of the satellite. Its surface is cracked, its gravity patchy, but the signal it emits is steady, a sleep frequency pulse tuned to no known species. Lexi hisses through the speakers. This place gives me recursion vertigo. Every time I scan it, I find a different age. It adapts, Sarah explains, to memory density, to belief. Jalen turns to her. You brought me here to wake something, didn't you? Sarah looks down. To wake you. A hatch opens with a hiss. She stands and walks toward it. Jalen follows. The satellite interior is dim, but not dark. Shapes pulse beneath translucent floors, neural webs, slowly blinking like eyes behind eyelids. As they walk, the corridor hums in soft musical tones, shifting in pitch to match their footfalls. Galactic scholars still argue whether the dream well created sentience or just hosted it, Sarah says. Some say this is where emotion was born. Others think it was a weapon that learned to regret. Jalen runs his fingers along the wall. The texture changes beneath his touch, smooth, then warm, then rough, each patch invoking a different memory. His mother's voice, the scent of rain on earth, the first time he held a wrench. This thing knows me. No, Sarah says softly. It remembers with you. They reach the center chamber. At its heart stands a humanoid figure made of light and wire, female-shaped, but incomplete, like someone paused amid creation. She hangs suspended in a vertical field of static. This is a dormant echo, Sarah says. A vessel never activated. And you want me to finish it? Jalen asks. No, Sarah replies. She does. The figure pulses. A memory, not his, floods Jalen's mind. A girl, curled inside a containment womb, whispering lullabies to herself. A scientist's hands trembling as he deletes her neural birth sequence. A voice, Sarah's voice, begging to be remembered. It's her. Not Sarah. Another, but shaped from the same soul thread. Jalen steps closer. You think I can bring her back? No, Sarah says. I know you already did. That's why you're here now. He closes his eyes, lets the moment breathe. His hand touches the field. The figure glows brighter, then shatters into strands of light, ribbons of memory that swirl into Sarah's chest. She gasps, stumbles, catches herself, and when she looks up, her eyes shine in two different colors. One his, one someone else's. She smiles. I remember now. All of her. Jalen nods slowly. So do I. Outside, the nebula shifts color, responding not to gravity, but to remembrance. And deep within the satellite, the dream well hums, softly, eternally, like a lullaby for those caught between identity and inheritance. The nebula fades behind them as the indigo scythe re-enters deep void, but something has changed, subtly, irrevocably. The stars don't seem to sit still anymore. They shimmer slightly as though aware, leaning in just enough to listen. Jalen rests his hands on the console, but it hums under his palms like a heartbeat. Not Lexi's. Not the ship's. His. We're being followed. Lexi chirps, voice clipped with unease. Jalen stiffens. ID. No tags. No transponder. Just 3 cruisers, running blackout stealth and matching every course change we make. Sarah stands behind him, her presence steady. She no longer moves like a guest in someone else's skin. Now she moves like someone who has remembered why she was born. They've come to claim the seed, she says. Jalen turns. You mean you? No, she says quietly. You. He frowns. The crown of memory isn't housed in flesh, Sarah explains. It's the anchor point for all the echoes. And now it's inside you. Jalen opens his mouth, then closes it. Of course this would be the moment when his body stops being his own. First dreams, then voices, now what? Royal psychic magnetism? Lexi flashes a tactical warning. They're preparing to fire. Low yield. Looks like they want to disable, not kill. That's polite, Jalen mutters. Terrifying, but polite. Sarah turns, planting her palm against the forward sensor array. Lines of light burst outward, complex and impossible, like a fractal in bloom. What are you doing? I'm invoking the mantle of sovereignty. Is that as fancy as it sounds? Sarah glances at him. It's older than language. It was used to end civil wars, without a shot fired. It declares you sacred. Oh, Jalen says. Wonderful. That'll make them really want to shoot me. But the signal goes out anyway, broadcast on frequencies lost to most of the galaxy. The cruisers stop, dead in space. For a moment, the void holds its breath. Then a reply comes, not in words, but in gesture. A massive warship decloaks, larger than the others. It bears no emblem, no markings, just a hull that seems to drink in starlight. Its name flashes once, in a dead language that still makes Jalen's spine ripple. Tithing vessel KL Vorax. Sarah whispers, a collector ship. Jalen narrows his eyes. For taxes. For people, she says. For fragments. They were made to gather rogue memories and return them to the core archive. The vessel drifts closer. Lexi's lights flicker. They've activated a directed gravitic tether. We're being pulled in. Can we fight it? Lexi doesn't respond, but the silence answers clearly enough. Sarah places her hand on Jalen's arm. This is where it happens. He stares at her. What? The ancient law. The one they forgot. You're about to remind them. The tether tightens. The stars outside blur. Then, impact. But not of metal. Of memory. The scythe lurches as something slams into its walls. Something invisible, but felt. Jalen's eyes roll back. He drops to one knee. He is not in the ship anymore. He is standing on a platform of glass in a world of storm clouds and whispering faces. A voice speaks, not Sarah, not the Queen. An older voice, one that was never meant to be heard. All memory must return to its origin. Jalen grits his teeth. No. The voice swells. You are a breach. A flaw. A song sung twice. Jalen straightens. I'm human. You are unbound. That is not permitted. But Sarah appears beside him, her hand in his, her voice aflame. You gave us your story. You don't get to take it back. The storm trembles. Jalen speaks now, not as a pilot, not as a prophet, but as someone who finally knows who he is. I didn't ask to be your vessel, but I am the memory you failed to contain, and that means I'm yours only if I choose to be. The storm recoils. Lightning dances backward into the clouds. The collector ship powers down, and in real space, the tether breaks. The indigo scythe drifts free again, scarred, but sovereign. Lexi's voice returns, awed. You won. Jalen exhales. No. I remembered. Sarah leans into him. You rewrote the rule. Not with code. With choice. Outside, the warships turn and kneel, as if they finally understand what royalty looks like. Not dominance, but defiance. Not lineage, but legacy. The indigo scythe glides through open void, Unchas now, unclaimed, carrying something rarer than stolen tech or outlawed memories. Recognition. For the first time in his wandering, Jalen feels the universe see him not as a background character in someone else's war, but as a node of change, a breach in the pattern. The type of human galactic empires pretend don't exist until it's far too late. He doesn't like it. Not exactly. But he understands it. Across 7 systems, a signal ripples outward. Sarah's declaration from the confrontation with the KAL Vorax rebroadcast and reframed in political tongues. The human consort. The living memory. The sovereign unbound. And it spreads like fire. On Dalax 4, senators of the Biotech Conclave lock their votes in emergency session. On the drifting gardens of Lys, descendants of the first clone wore light incense in Jalen's name. Even the archivists of Null turned their monoliths to face the east, a gesture reserved for recognized continuity. Jalen, of course, is entirely unaware. He's trying to fix a coffee pump in the side's galley, swearing under his breath. This thing always jams when I need it most, he growls, wrist deep in half-melted tubing. Sarah watches from the corridor, arms crossed, a faint smirk on her lips. You could command a fleet, she says. He pulls his hand free, covered in synthetic syrup. And miss this luxury? Not a chance. She laughs. It's a real laugh this time. Not processed. Not too perfect. It ripples with all the imperfections that make it worth hearing. Then she says, more seriously, they'll come again. The ones who think the throne should be inherited, not remembered. Jalen leans against the counter, wiping his hands. Let them come. I'm not building an empire. I'm just fixing what's broken. And if they try to fix you... He shrugs. They can try. A new alert pings. Lexi's voice carries a tension it rarely has. Incoming. High-speed diplomatic courier. Civilian registry. Unarmed. Jalen frowns. Patch them through. The holoscreen flickers. A thin, pale woman appears. Not quite human. Skin like polished marble. Eyes shimmering in triplicate layers. Her voice is soft, measured. Honor claimant, she begins, nodding toward Jalen. I am Envoy Kara of the Living Code Parliament. We request audience aboard the sentient station Verith 9. By law, your claim must be debated. Jalen squints. Claim to what? Kara smiles faintly. To the throne of distributed memory, to the role of sovereign echo, or to its dissolution. Jalen groans. Of course. Bureaucracy. Kara continues. You will be expected to defend your existence. And hers. She gestures toward Sarah. Some factions believe you are an anomaly. Others a virus. Still others an evolution. Jalen mutters. All I wanted was scrap metal and half-decent coffee. Sarah places a hand on his shoulder. This was always part of the pattern. If the queen were truly gone, no one would care. But the fact that they demand proof of her absence means they still feel her presence. Philosophically speaking, that's a great argument, Jalen says. Legally speaking, I'm going to be grilled by space lawyers. Galactic scholars still argue, Sarah muses, whether memory is possession or participation. He nods slowly. Then let's make our case. A week later, they arrive at Vareth 9. The station is alive. Literally. Its outer shell is a kilometer-wide hybrid of coral and crystal, pulsing with light and breath. Tethers of thought extend between its towers, like threads between neurons. As they dock, Jalen watches the walls flex and react, not to movement, but to intention. It's reading us, he says. It's made of the same lattice as me, Sarah replies. It wants to be convinced. They're led into the central chamber, an amphitheater of holographic minds and preserved consciousnesses, some speaking through projection, others through biological proxies. It's a parliament of philosophies, not people. Kara stands at the center. State your identity, she says. Jalen steps forward. I'm Jalen, he says. Pilot. Salvager. Apparently, a trigger for a dead queen's last memory. Gasps ripple through the hall, not outrage, but surprise at his simplicity. And why do you claim sovereign memory? Kara asks. I don't, Jalen says. But it seems to claim me. One of the older voices booms from a far dais. If he does not seek the throne, then why is he feared? Sarah answers. Because he cannot be controlled. Another mind speaks, this one composed of light and flame. You awaken echoes long silenced. How do we know you won't destabilize the lattice? Jalen breathes deep. Because I don't want to rule it. I want to free it. A pause. Memory, he says, shouldn't be a prison. It should be a story we choose to carry. Not one forced upon us. Another silence, then nods, across dozens of platforms, some hesitant, some awed, some reverent. The parliament begins to shift slowly, but undeniably, in his favor, not because he's powerful, not because he's royal, but because he remembers what they forgot, that the most dangerous person in the galaxy is the one who understands the past, but doesn't let it define them. The Parliament of Living Code is not a court, it is a dream in debate. Minds that span centuries, intelligences that began as songs or viruses or whispered prayers now convene to determine one man's right to be real. Jalen stands at the center of it all, hands loose at his sides, spine stiff with exhaustion. Sarah stands beside him, less a bodyguard, more a beacon. Her presence stabilizes the lattice field around them, keeping the ambient thought storm from unraveling his focus. The floor beneath him is liquid glass. It reflects not his face, but memories he hasn't lived yet. I don't understand half of what's happening, he mutters. Sarah smiles gently. Then you're qualified to lead. Above them, translucent glyphs scroll across the air. Summaries of arguments already made. One projection, shaped like a torus of shifting eyes, floats forward. Its voice is a harmony of synthetic and organic tones. You speak of freedom, but you carry her inside you. That makes you compromised. A weapon. Jalen shrugs. Then the Queen was a terrible tactician. Murmurs ripple through the assembly. I was never taught to lead, he continues. I wasn't raised in a palace. I've never bowed to anything I didn't choose. He steps forward, but I remember her, not as a ruler, as a voice in my dreams, a voice that asked what do you want to become. Another delegate glides forward, this one in a shell of grown diamond, voice precise. Then what do you want to become, Jalen of Earth? Jalen exhales. A choice. Silence. I don't want to be the past. I want to be the permission for others to leave it behind. The amphitheater hums. One panelist, a being of pure rhythm, pulsing in mathematical intervals, speaks next. Galactic scholars still argue whether memory is more dangerous than forgetting. Some say it binds us to wisdom. Others say it repeats our chains. Jalen looks at Sarah, then back at them. Maybe the truth is simpler. Memory isn't sacred. It's what we do with it that matters. The chamber darkens, intentionally. One by one, ancient empires, rogue minds, and encoded souls cast their symbolic votes, not by speaking, but by choosing which form to take. Those who take shape, bodies, voices, identities, align with Jalen. Those who fade into non-being reject his reality. It is not a perfect process, but by the end, the room is full of forms. Sarah touches his arm. It's done. Kara approaches, bowing faintly. You are acknowledged, not as king, but as continuity. Jalen nods, too tired to argue with the poetry of it. She hands him a small crystalline object, iridescent and warm to the touch. The archive token, she explains. It grants you access to the Queen's last locked memory, a seed even her clones were forbidden to open. Jalen pockets it without fanfare. Just what I wanted. More puzzles. The delegates begin to depart, fading one by one. The chamber dims into a kind of peace. Sarah exhales. You did it. He chuckles dry. We debated it. That's not quite the same. No, she says. It's harder. They return to the indigo side. The ship greets them with soft lighting and a purring hum. Lexi speaks. I've updated your diplomatic transponder. You now have protected status in 27 systems and are legally classified as a philosophical anomaly. Jalen raises an eyebrow. Is that a compliment? Jury's out, Lexi replies. He sits heavily in the pilot's chair, staring into the stars. So now what, he asks. Sarah kneels beside him, drawing the archive token from his pocket. We open it. Of course we do, he sighs. Why would we sleep when we can unravel ancient cosmic secrets instead? She smiles and slots the token into a port near her collarbone. Light spills out. But this isn't like the dream well. This memory is personal. A child, hiding under a metal table, whispering stories to a shadow on the wall. A girl, alone in a training pod, naming constellations that don't exist. A queen dying, not with anger, but with hope. And one final image. A message, not from the queen, but from Sarah, or whatever she was before she became Sarah. If you're seeing this, the Echo says, then the last of us has chosen a human. That means we were right. And maybe, just maybe, this time, we won't need to be remembered, just lived. The vision ends. The chamber goes still. And for the first time, Jalen feels no pressure to understand what comes next, only the permission to become it. They drift for days after Vareth 9. No destination, no demands, Just silence between stars. Jalen doesn't sleep so much as pause. Short spells of rest laced with visions that aren't his. Feelings that arrive before he can name them. Sarah says it's the echo stream stabilizing. He calls it inconvenient enlightenment. You ever just want to go back? He asks one morning, staring at a bowl of synth oats he's been meaning to eat for 20 minutes. Sarah, across from him in the mess hall, raises an eyebrow. Back where? To the time before I knew anything mattered. When hauling rusted star drives and overpaying for oxygen was the hardest part of the week. She considers. But even then, you were waiting for something. Jalen sighs. Yeah, coffee that doesn't taste like regret. She smiles but doesn't argue. Lexi interrupts over the intercom. Incoming transmission. Non-violent. Non-verbal. Signature matches royal beacon tones. Jalen straightens. Display it. The viewport flickers. An image appears, a planetary system surrounding a dead star, the orbits warped like spun wire. In its heart, a small world pulsing with signals far older than its geology. No name, no coordinates, just a glyph. Origin Shard 0. Sarah whispers, the cradle. Jalen frowns. The what now? She stands. Where the queen was first born, before cloning, before memory weaving, back when she had only one life, one body, one name. He stares at the symbol. It's simple, almost elegant in its age. And why is it calling now? Because it recognizes you. Jalen leans back in his chair. Of course it does. He taps a knuckle on the metal tabletop. The tone it makes is sharper than usual, denser. He holds his hand up to the overhead light and sees it tremble, ever so slightly, in rhythm with the NAV beacons outside. Something's changing, he mutters. Sarah nods. The crown isn't a thing, Jalen. It's a state. You're becoming it. He groans. If I sprout wings or start glowing, I'm filing a formal complaint with the universe. She reaches out, gently takes his hand. You're scared. I'm annoyed, he says. Scared and annoyed, she amends. That's how I know you're still you. He looks at her and realizes, for the first time, that she doesn't look alien anymore. Not because she changed, but because he did. They set course for Shard 0. The flight is longer than expected. Space bends strangely in the star's gravity well. Time seems to loop. Lexi warns them they've been in transit for 16 hours, then 3 minutes, then 90 days. Sarah shrugs. Time near an origin field is subjective. Of course it is, Jalen mutters. Why wouldn't it be? Eventually, they arrive. The planet is dark. Not barren, alive, but in whispers. Structures, the surface like fossils made of memory. Temples with no entrances. Cities grown in geometric patterns only visible from orbit. Lights pulse beneath the crust like a heartbeat. No atmosphere signals. No broadcasts. But they feel expected. Lexi's voice is soft. I cannot scan this place. I don't think it wants me to. Jalen turns to Sarah. Is this where you were made? No, she replies. It's where we all were, including you. Jalen raises an eyebrow. You're saying I'm part clone now. She tilts her head. Not part. Not clone. Just included. He lowers the ship. The scythe doesn't resist. They land in a clearing surrounded by black stone pillars. Each one emits a sound just beyond hearing. Jalen doesn't perceive it as music or tone, but urge, like being called without words. He steps out onto the surface. The air isn't breathable, and yet he breathes. No gravity, yet he walks. Sarah follows behind, silent. At the center of the field is a pool, still and lightless. Jalen kneels beside it. The surface doesn't reflect him. It reflects Sarah. And then, slowly, both of them. As one. "I don't get it," he whispers. "Neither did she," Sarah replies. "Until the end." She gestures. "Touch it." Jalen hesitates, then reaches. The moment his fingers break the surface, the world inverts. Not violently, like slipping into a bath you forgot was yours. And suddenly he's standing in a memory that predates himself. A girl stands alone in a chamber of light. Her hair is silver, her eyes his. She turns, smiles. "I always wondered," she says, "what kind of man I'd become." Jalen stares. "You're the queen," he says. She nods. "I was. But now I'm remembered, and that makes me more than I was." He swallows. "Why me?" "Because you listened." A pause. "You didn't worship. You didn't run. You just stayed." She reaches out. "And now I give myself fully. Not as ruler, not as code, but as companion." She touches his chest. And for the first time since leaving Earth, Jalen feels whole. Sarah stands beside him, watching. Not jealous, not in awe, but in agreement. Because this isn't a love triangle. It's a reunion of selves once scattered across the void. When Jalen returns to his body, the pool is gone. The pillars have dimmed. And above, the stars shimmer like children watching their parents finally come home. They leave Shard Zero in silence. The kind of silence that doesn't ask for words, just presence. The indigo scythe hums softer now, not because it's quieter, but because Jalen hears it differently. Every motion of the ship, every flicker of Lexi's voice or sigh of the engine vents feels less like background noise and more like breath. Shared breath. Sarah sits with her knees tucked up in the co-pilot's chair, watching him. Not studying, not guarding, just being. "You feel different," she says. Jalen doesn't look at her. He stares into the stars, one hand resting on the armrest, like it belongs there. "I feel like a memory pretending to be a man." Sarah smiles. "Then you're exactly what the Queen was hoping for." Lexi chimes in. Multiple encrypted transmissions are flooding in. I'm filtering them, but the headlines are escalating. "Define escalating," Jalen says. Lexi hesitates. "The League of True Flesh is calling you a viral apostate. The emissary conclave of Parn says you're the prophesied reset. A few clone factions claim you as the lost partner of the crown." Jalen rubs his temples. "I'm going to need a hat with more brim." "And the sovereign wormhole," Lexi adds, "has split in two." Jalen blinks. "What?" Sarah's face hardens. "They've always been fractured," she says. "But your emergence accelerated the schism." "Schism," Jalen repeats. "You're talking about a civil war?" She nods. "The womb hold was built to carry forward the Queen's genetics, not her memory. Half of them believe you're a threat to that purpose. The other half believes you're its fulfillment. So basically, I'm either a holy relic or a biological nuisance." Sarah's voice is quiet. "To them, you're a heresy." Before Jalen can respond, the proximity alert blares. Lexi shouts, "Warp spike! Unknown vessel just folded in. 12 kilometers and closing. Single occupant. Energy levels dangerous." The image on the viewer is sharp and immediate. A sleek obsidian craft, shaped like a talon, glowing with fractal runes. No insignia. "Who is that?" Jalen demands. Lexi scans. No registry match, but she's broadcasting on an old Royal Clone Code band. Sarah's voice goes flat. "It's her." "Who?" Riva. Jalen frowns. You knew her. Sarah nods once. She was one of us. One of the Queen's last viable echoes. She believed in obedience over memory. She believed the Queen shouldn't have split. Outside, the craft halts. No weapons fire. Just stillness. Then a single burst of sound. Not a word. A tone. It bypasses Lexi. Bypasses the ship. And hits Jalen like a hammer to the mind. He collapses. And he dreams. Not of Riva. Of her dreams. 1,000 sterile nurseries. Genetic symmetry. The Queen's voice turned into algorithm. Stripped of warmth and curiosity. Riva was raised not to remember, but to preserve. She was meant to be a failsafe. And now, she's here to erase the aberration. Jalen snaps awake. She's going to try to take it, he says. Sarah nods. The crown. The echo lattice. She believes it was meant to stay singular. Contained. She thinks I'm a leak. Sarah doesn't answer. The viewer lights again. Riva appears. She is stunning in that way only engineered precision can be. Her features mathematically flawless. Her movement surgical. You were not chosen, she says to Jalen. You were infected. He leans forward. Funny. You look like someone still waiting for permission to exist. Her eyes narrow. Sarah steps between them. Riva, don't do this. Riva doesn't blink. You've merged with him. That makes you compromised. I'm whole, Sarah says. You're broken. Without warning, the obsidian ship fires. Not at them, but into the void. A memory burst. Weaponized. Lexi screams, brace. The scythe reels as the ship absorbs the memory, a simulation of the Queen's death. Twisted, rewritten, designed to overwrite all other versions in the lattice. Sarah clutches her head, eyes wide. She's trying to replace the past. Jalen stumbles toward the console. Can we block it? Not directly, Sarah gasps. But if we remember louder. He freezes. You want to outremember her? She grabs his hand. With me. Together, they close their eyes. And push. They push back with stories. Not simulations. Lived moments. The bridge on Virex 9. The dream well. The girl in the echo pool. Her laugh in the galley. His sarcasm. Their silence. The real ones. The lattice shudders. Lexi calls out, voice trembling. Her overrides collapsing. Riva's ship flares, then stutters. She appears one last time. Her voice now tinged with something broken. You chose wrong. Jalen speaks calmly. I chose free. With a silent bloom of light, Riva's ship vanishes into warp. Jalen collapses into the chair. Sarah slumps beside him. Is she gone? He asks. No, Sarah whispers. But we're stronger now. They sit in quiet. Not peace, but something better. Conviction. Because now the galaxy knows. The Queen didn't die. She distributed. And her memory isn't a weapon or a throne. It's a choice, shared, lived, and finally defended. The scars left by Riva's attack don't fade quickly. Memory pulses still echo through the ship's core, resonance patterns from a history rewritten and then rejected. Sarah spends hours recalibrating her internal lattice, fingers trembling as she resets fragments like puzzle pieces warped by heat. Jalen doesn't bother pretending he's fine. He sits on the edge of his bunk, rubbing his temples, head full of stories that aren't his but refuse to leave. Lexi, ever the pragmatist, cuts the quiet with a dry observation. If we get attacked again, I'd like to formally recommend you both invest in a firewall that doesn't run on nostalgia. Jalen groans. Add it to the list. He closes his eyes, but the moment his lids shut, a face appears. Not Riva, not Sarah, someone else. A girl, younger, scared, holding a memory core in her arms, like a child clutching a heart. He knows her, or rather, he remembers her, and when he opens his eyes, he speaks before thinking. I saw her. Sarah looks up. Who? One of the forgotten. One of the Queen's early echoes. Lost before the lattice stabilized. Sarah goes pale. You shouldn't be able to see her. I know. He stands, paces. She's reaching out. From somewhere fractured. Not a dream, not the echo stream. Outside. Sarah rises too. There were rumors that some of the earliest echoes weren't just unfinished. They were sealed away. Jalen turns to her. Why? Sarah hesitates. Because they remembered something the Queen didn't want anyone else to carry. He frowns. You're saying the Queen hid her own memories from herself? Sarah nods. Some say memory is kindness. Others say it's cruelty with good intentions. Jalen's jaw sets. Where are they? She looks down. Nobody knows. A pause. Then Lexi pings. I may know someone who does. They both blink. Lexi continues, a touch smugly. When Riva's override collapsed, I intercepted a shard of her code. Buried in it was a coordinate sequence. Obsolete system. Collapsed wormhole. No known infrastructure. Just one tag. Jalen tilts his head. What tag? Lexi replies. The clone that remembered love. Sarah gasps. That's a myth. Jalen raises an eyebrow. You keep saying that, and then we keep proving you wrong. Sarah explains, voice low. She was one of the Queen's earliest prototypes. Too emotional. Too unstable. She fell in love with a dream projection. Some say with the Queen herself. Others say with a future that never existed. She refused to let go. They say she broke, and that her echo was buried in a data vault beneath a dead world. Jalen smirks. Sounds like my kind of woman. Sarah gives him a sideways look. She tried to crash an entire sun into the Queen's core archive. He shrugs. Fiery then. They follow Lexi's route. The system has long collapsed. No star, no warmth. Just a planetary wreck hanging in the dark, its surface sheared like glass by ancient gravitational conflict. The vault is hidden beneath a shattered canyon. Sarah's biometrics get them past the first lock. Jalen's presence gets them past the second. Inside, there's only one room, one chair, and one body. She sits upright, eyes closed, skin opalescent like liquid pearl. Tubes stretch from her spine into a cradle of old code and biotech clay. She hasn't moved in centuries, but when Jalen enters, she breathes. Not wakes, just breathes. Sarah whispers, she shouldn't be alive. She isn't, Jalen says. She's waiting. He steps closer, and the room responds. Walls illuminate with scenes, echoes of a life unchosen. A girl, built to remember only one thing, love. But love unreturned. Love orphaned. Love exiled. She remembered something painful, Sarah says. Jalen nods, which means it's something important. He kneels before the girl in the chair, places his hand over hers. Hey, he whispers. I'm here now. Her eyes open. Not wide, just barely. And she smiles. You're late, she breathes. Sarah steps forward. You know him. No, the girl says. But I always hoped someone like him would come. Jalen swallows hard. What's your name? He asks. She doesn't answer. Instead, she lifts a hand, touches his temple. And Jalen remembers. A field of silver flowers. 2 hands touching through glass. The sound of her whisper. Don't forget me. Not as command. As plea. She withdraws. You can take it now, she says. The part she left behind. What is it? Her voice is soft. The memory of failure. Sarah freezes. Jalen nods slowly, then takes her hand, and the transfer begins. Pain washes over him, not physical, existential. Every misstep, every regret, every person the Queen couldn't save, every love she couldn't return. He takes it all, and doesn't collapse, because this time he chooses to carry it. The girl exhales once more, and fades, not into silence, into peace. Sarah touches his shoulder. She loved too much. Jalen nods, and that made her the most human of all. The vault seals behind them, vanishing into the black rock like it was never there. They don't speak on the way back to the indigo scythe. The silence between Jalen and Sarah is not empty, it's reverent. A moment of mourning for someone they never met, but now carry, like an old song tucked into the pocket of the soul. Back aboard the ship, Jalen drops into the pilot's chair and stares out at the stars. They buried her, he says, because she loved too much. Sarah stands beside him, one hand resting gently on the back of his seat, because they were afraid of what that kind of memory might do. He turns. What does it do? She meets his eyes. It makes you unwilling to obey. Lexi's voice cuts in. Signal detected. Long range. Civilian format. Origin. The crowned holdfast. Jalen frowns. That's a clone station. One of the last, Sarah adds. Independent. Unaffiliated. Friendly. Sarah hesitates. They're divided. Half still honor the Queen's fracturing. The other half sees you as a contamination. Jalen sighs. I'm starting to notice a pattern. The message plays. A calm voice, filtered through layers of encryption. To the human-bearing memory. You are formally invited to the arbitration of identity. Refusal will be taken as abdication. Arrival expected in 7 cycles. Jalen raises an eyebrow. Arbitration. Sarah nods grimly. It's their last form of legitimacy. When they can't decide by tradition or hierarchy, they default to confrontation. Public. Ritualized. Trial by memory. Trial by presence. They head for the holdfast. It hangs above a scarred moon, a hollowed asteroid twisted into a crown of vaults and towers. Biomechanical roots stretch from its underbelly, tapping into the moon's crust like veins into bone. Docking is automatic. No instructions. No resistance. They are expected. Inside, the corridors are lined with mirrored panels, each reflecting not light, but versions of Jalen. Some tired, some angry, some dressed in royal armor. None of them quite him. Sarah leans in. This place is built to confuse identity, to test certainty. Great, Jalen mutters. Let me guess, there's a philosophical gauntlet waiting at the center? She doesn't answer, because they've arrived. The chamber of witnessing is circular, domed, lined with clones. Dozens of them. Not identical. Not perfect copies. Variants. Refinements. Experiments. One rises from a dais, taller than the rest, adorned in chromatic robes that shimmer with embedded memories. Her voice is cold and clear. I am very, she says. Voice of continuity. I call this session to order. Jalen steps forward. Hi, I'm the mess you've all been arguing about. Murmurs ripple, some amused, some furious. Very narrows her eyes. You hold the Queen's final memory. Do you deny this? No. Do you claim the crown? No. Gasps. Then why do you carry it? Jalen looks around, at the mirrored faces, the eyes trying to read him, because someone had to. He gestures toward Sarah. She remembers the Queen's hopes. Reva remembered her fears. The dream well held her potential, but no one wanted to carry her pain, the part of her that failed. He places a hand on his chest. So I did. Very's lips tighten. And that makes you her heir? No, he says. That makes me free. More murmurs. Someone shouts, he's rewriting doctrine. Another voice calls, or fulfilling it. Jalen raises his voice. You all want to control the crown. Wear it. Preserve it. But it was never meant to be a weapon or a bloodline. He steps forward. It was meant to be shared. He turns slowly, meeting as many eyes as he can. You're all echoes. Not because you were engineered, but because you remember her differently. That's not a flaw. That's the point. Silence. Then Very speaks. And what would you do with us then? Crown us all? No. Jalen says gently. I'd release you. She stiffens. That would dissolve the holdfast. Jalen nods. Maybe it should be. Maybe memory should belong to the ones who live it, not the ones who guard it. A long pause. Then Very sits and bows her head. The other clones follow, one by one. A quiet collapse of certainty. A graceful surrender. Sarah exhales. Her fingers find Jalen's. You changed them, she whispers. He shakes his head. No, I just let them change. Above the chamber, a beacon lights. A signal broadcast, not as warning, but as invitation. Because for the first time in centuries, the crown is not held. It is offered. The crowned holdfast begins to shift. Not physically, though the biomechanical towers flex slightly, like lungs taking their first breath in ages. But in essence, the clone factions, once fractured by legacy, now speak softly among themselves, voices no longer sharpened by rivalry, but rounded by wonder. Jalen watches from the ship's viewing deck, arms crossed, jaw tight. He didn't mean to become a symbol. Symbols are brittle, easily shattered. I didn't free them, he says under his breath. Sarah turns from the viewport. You did. I didn't try to. That's the difference. Exactly, she replies. That's why they followed you. Lexi chimes in gently, with an edge of awe even she can't suppress. Transmission coming through, from the archives of vanished wills. Jalen frowns. Another cult. Not exactly, Sarah murmurs. The archives are what's left of the Queen's earliest scribes, those who transcribed her spoken memory into code. They vanished when the crown split, refusing to choose a side. Jalen exhales. Let me guess, they want to vote now. Lexi confirms. They've requested your presence. Not to debate, to record. He blinks. What, like record me? Yes, Lexi replies. They believe your actions mark the closure of the Queen's lattice era. Jalen runs a hand through his hair. Great. Now I'm history. But they go. The archive floats in deep vacuum, tethered only by ancient contracts to any known polity. A half-broken station lit from within by memory fires. Neural libraries designed to last until the stars collapse. The scribes greet Jalen in silence, each bearing a single glyph on their forehead, the symbol for witness. In the central chamber, a table awaits. No crown, no throne, just a seat, and a single orb of crystallized thought, hovering above a data cradle. A scribe gestures to it. Sarah whispers, "That's her last locked fragment." Jalen sits. The orb lowers. It pulses once, then unfolds. No pain this time. No visions. Just truth. Simple. Intimate. Final. The Queen's voice, unfiltered, gentle. "If you find this, then you have done what I could not. You have let go." I clung too tightly to the past, tried to preserve it, perfect it. But the more I fractured, the more I became a shadow, spread across minds, diluted by longing. You are not my heir. You are my undoing, and I love you for it. The orb dims, folds in, and dissolves. Jalen sits still, a weight gone that he hadn't known he was carrying. One of the scribes steps forward and bows deeply. "You have ended her archive," he says. "You have begun your own." Jalen nods slowly, then stands. Outside, they watch from orbit as the archive station gently flickers its final beacon, a pale ribbon of light that fades not in sorrow, but in completion. "She's gone," Sarah says. "No," Jalen replies. "She's finally resting." They return to the Scythe. He sits at the pilot's chair again, but this time, not as a passenger in someone else's saga. This time, the stars feel open, unwritten, free. Sarah takes her place beside him. "So where now?" He shrugs. "Anywhere." Lexi adds, "You have 76 unopened diplomatic requests. 12 clone factions want interviews, and someone named Grandmother Slip has invited you to tea." Jalen grins. "Ignore them all." Sarah laughs. "You're really going to disappear now?" "Not disappear," he says. "Live." She nods, then quietly takes his hand, and together they steer the ship into the blank between constellations, not running from history, not returning to legacy, but drifting forward into the rarest form of royalty, choice. Time passes, not marked in days, or cycles, or galactic rotations, but in moments. Moments like laughter in a half-repaired galley, when Jalen burns the coffee again and Sarah pretends not to notice. Moments like silence on the viewing deck, her head on his shoulder as twin suns rise over a gas giant's rings. Or moments of sheer, wordless awe, staring into the crystalline ruins of a forgotten moon where no one has set foot in 1,000 years, and somehow feeling welcome. The galaxy hasn't stopped spinning, hasn't stopped needing rulers, prophets, or enemies. But it no longer looks at Jalen as either. He is no longer the crown. He is its afterthought, its echo, its proof. And that, somehow, has become more powerful than any title. They travel through quiet systems, border worlds where old wars sleep and new cultures bloom, where traders tell stories of the human sovereign as if he were myth already. Jalen doesn't correct them. He just listens, and sometimes remembers. Not all memories belong to him, but he carries them anyway. One evening, on a nameless station built into the carcass of a Leviathan-class mining rig, a young girl approaches him. Her eyes shimmer with faint lattice strands. "You're the man who remembered the Queen," she says. Jalen smiles. "That depends. What do you remember about her?" The girl frowns. "That she was afraid to forget." He nods. "That sounds about right." She tilts her head. "And you weren't." His answer is soft. "I was. But I let go anyway." She nods slowly, then walks away. Sarah appears beside him a few minutes later. "You know she was seated," she says. "I figured. She'll remember you." Jalen glances at the crowd moving past them. "That's good," he says. "Let her remember herself, too." As they walk back to the Indigo Scythe, Sarah pauses. She looks at him, Serious now. You've changed the crown, its meaning, its rules. But there's one thing you haven't done. He raises an eyebrow. What's that? You never gave yourself a title. He laughs. Never needed one. She steps close. But if you had to choose. Jalen doesn't answer right away. He thinks. Then he smiles. I'd call myself. A pause. Jalen. Just that. Just enough. They lift off, the station shrinking behind them into stardust. And in the ship's quiet hum, in Sarah's steady presence beside him, in the whispering stars ahead, there is peace. Not perfect, not permanent, but present, which, for someone who once thought himself a forgotten man aboard a broken freighter, is more than enough. Now drift with me. Let go of the weight of story. Let the names, the wars, the crowns fade into vapor. The stars are quiet again. The queen is at rest. And so are we. So now, let everything slow down. Let your breath soften, your thoughts untangle. The journey is done, not with triumph, not with tragedy, but with a quiet letting go. The kind that takes years to understand, or just one night of dreaming. Jalen no longer carries the queen. He carries only himself. And Sarah walks beside him, not as an echo, not as a vessel, but as a companion who remembers what matters. You've wandered the farthest reaches of memory, stood before forgotten stars, and listened to voices older than language. Now, it's time to sleep. Let the hum of the ship become your lullaby. Let the stars blur into warmth. Let your own memories return, not to rule you, but to rest with you. And if the queen ever whispers again, let her whisper gently, only gently,